On their spine, within the dark water, they see a sign that says, "Prevent your death, go no further."
Come with us as we explore the depths of the sea.
There's a lot of cool stuff going on in the ocean. It's one of my personal favorite topics. And I'm always looking to learn new things, even if there is some mystery behind them.
Did you learn anything today?
I did.
Sweet.
I did actually.
Do
Yeah.
share.
I will. Stay tuned.
Is there any ocean creature more intimidating and ferocious than the great white shark? The apex predator of the sea? Well, apparently yes. Back in 2003, scientists tagged this massive great white shark. They were studying temperature changes in the ocean. Well, several months passed, and the researchers found the shark's tag washed up on shore in Australia. They took a look at the tag's information, which revealed that about 4 months after they had tagged the shark, it had suddenly plunged 1,900 feet below. There was also a sudden spike in the shark's temperature, so it looked like something had attacked the shark and dragged it down before, putting it in its mouth. So the question was, what the hell had managed to attack and consume a 9-foot great white shark? Now, there are rare cases of cannibal great whites, and there are great white sharks that are much larger than 9 feet, so that was a possibility. Again, that's rare though. Great whites usually don't attack one another. Another possibility is that something else attacked the shark. Something else that we'd never want to run into.
Next up, we've got eggs and active volcanoes. In July of 2022, marine researchers decided to explore an ancient deep-sea volcano off Canada's Pacific coastline. And what they found was pretty cool. First of all, they discovered that the 3,600 foot tall volcano, 1,100 meters, was actually still active. And second of all, that it was covered in around 1 million eggs the size of American footballs. What kind of eggs? Skate eggs. And no, I'm not referring to a hockey player's breakfast, but rather a little-known sea creature closely related to sharks and rays. The specific skates on the volcano are Pacific white skates, and they're super cool to look at. These creatures, along with many others living around the volcano, are able to survive and thrive because of the warm, nutrient-rich waters produced by the active volcano. The mystery here is how the hell this thing has stayed active for so long. How did we not know about it until now, and what else is out there? I bet James has some answers. Starting off our list today, we have Cuba's underwater city, the remains of a 12-acre city sitting at a depth of roughly 8,380 meters. In 2001, sonar scans off the coast of Cuba revealed that the seafloor was littered with geometric structures that could very well be the remains of a lost ancient city. And some experts even claim that using the same technology, they were able to identify the presence of a pyramid as well as a large sculpture of a sphinx sitting on the ocean floor. While it might be a bit far out there, there are some people who are claiming that Cuba's underwater city might actually be the lost city of Atlantis, which in its heyday was said to have held great knowledge and power as well as a great power source. Perhaps that source sank within the city, causing the electromagnetic activity in the area to go haywire, which might explain the 40 ships and 20 airplane disappearances in the area. I mean, it could be nothing. After the initial reports documenting the find were released, there were no follow-up reports or expeditions, but on the other hand, there probably were follow-up expeditions and it's just a cover-up. Next up, we've got the shark snacker. In 2014, it was discovered that something was attacking and eating great white sharks off the coast of southwest Australia. Scientists were alerted of the strange phenomenon after the research tag of a great white suddenly and quickly dove down to 1,903 feet into the depths of the ocean. Not only that, but the temperature of the tag actually increased as it made its descent from 46 to 78 degrees Fahrenheit. The only likely explanation for the fast descent paired with an increase in temperature was that the great white, the apex predator of the ocean, had been eaten by something bigger, faster, and stronger than it. Two theories emerged as to what what kind of animal could have done this. One, it was an orca, also known as a killer whale, which are known to be incredibly aggressive and also twice as long and 3 times heavier than great whites. Or 2, that it was a much larger undiscovered shark with an appetite not far off from Dahmer's. Next up, the Devil's Sea, aka the Asian Bermuda Triangle, located in Japan's corner of the Pacific Ocean. In 2014 and 2015, 2 separate passenger planes carrying a total of over 250 people crashed over the waters of the Devil's Sea for no known reason. This prompted people to look into the history of the area, and when they did, they discovered that the disappearance of the 2 aircrafts were not an isolated incident. In fact, in the 1950s, many large vessels disappeared under mysterious circumstances in the waters as well, with 9 of those disappearances occurring in the span of just 4 years. Because of this, the Japanese government decided to send out a military ship to investigate. Whatever it found, we will never know, because it also disappeared. For whatever reason, the Devil's Sea just sucks up ships and planes down into its watery depths. Perhaps the area is a gateway to hell, as the name implies, or possibly it's electromagnetically charged, or maybe full of sea serpents, or maybe all 3. Whatever the reason, you will not catch me there.
At number 10, meeting a Mao Shark. All these stories, by the way, were posted on Reddit. This one is from u/1dumbdiver. I grew up in Oz. When I was 15, I took the family boat out and drove myself down the reef to clear my head, which was mistake number 1. I was down at a depth of 28 meters, 90 feet, when I was only rated for about 60 feet, mistake number 2. Whilst diving, I spotted a 2.5 meter Mao shark coming right at me. For those who are unaware, Macos are basically the cheetahs of the ocean, and they only have 2 speeds: curious, harmless, and lunch, very much harmful. This guy was in lunch mode, so I hovered, as I'd been trained to do, as there would be no way for me to escape or outmaneuver it. Nowadays, we dive with shark shields, which emit electronic pulses that freak the sharks out and keep them away. But back then, what we used was essentially a chainmail sleeve. The idea being that sharks hate the taste of metal, so if you give it your arm, it'll bite down, decide you're gross, and move along. So I wait, and it comes, and I do a perfect move to give the beastie my arm. Just before the crunch, however, it occurred to me that I had left my sleeve on my bed. Mistake number 3. I had my kelp blade drawn and I impaled it right as it bit me. It swam off and I was alive. However, I now had a series of problems. 1, I had huge open gashing wounds on my arm from the bite in open water, and it was trailing bodily fluids everywhere. Once the shock wore off, you realize that you're in salt water, and salt on open wounds does not feel good. In a panic, I dropped my weight belt and shot up to the surface without any sort of waiting period, which was mistake number 4. Because I hadn't been paying attention to the currents, I was approximately a quarter mile downstream of my boat, which means I had to swim up to it. Mistake number 5. When I got to the boat, I really started to wish I'd done as my dad had said and had the communications fixed. Mistake number 6. Or that I had upgraded the first aid kit like I had been wanting to do so. Number 7. So I end up racing back to shore with nothing but a tourniquet to staunch the bleeding. Long story short, my series of unfortunate self-inflicted events earned me 172 stitches, boatloads of physical therapy because the shark had actually bitten down on my tricep and detached it, and easily identifiable scars on one of my arms for the rest of my life. At number 9, she died instantly. Posted by u/waboosh. I was diving with a mom, her husband, and their son on a night dive. I don't know how many dives they'd been on, but the mom, for some reason, decided to go up without signaling anybody why. She did the thumbs up, which is the signal meaning that she needs to go up, and the dive instructor signaled back asking why she just went up. So the guide is trying to get her to come back down when a boat comes across and runs her right over. It was a big dual motor. There was all kinds of bodily fluids everywhere, and we had to rush out because there was a lot of sharks in the area. She perished instantly, I assume. If you're enjoying the video so far, please support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Most Amazing, and ringing the notification bell. At number 8, a jelly got stuck in my swim trunks, posted by u/pohatu_. Nearly all of my dives have been excellent, with only a few moments being scary. However, during one dive, something happened that wasn't really scary in the way you might be thinking, but it was pretty bad for me. To put it short and bluntly, a moon jelly got stuck in my swim trunks. Its stingers were in contact with my upper thigh for nearly a minute. Probably less than that, but it felt like a long time. It was terrifying coming up from an excellent night dive only to feel a certain something float up into my swim trunks and continuously sting my leg. Seeing all the other moon jellies hovering in the water after seeing the thing was no fun either. Nor was getting back to the boat when I could barely move my leg. I had really bad marks on it for almost a week and walking was difficult. Thankfully, moon jellies are pretty harmless. Usually you brush up against them and it feels like a bee sting and you go on your way. Except this one felt like a really bad bee sting for an extended period of time that was dangerously close to my family jewels. At number 7, saved someone from drowning while scuba diving, from you/sharkbite. A person had an epileptic seizure at 85 feet of water in a pitch black cavern I was diving in. I was hovering just above when I saw the flashlight move. I swam down and was met with other divers with no regulator in their mouth, their eyes open, just on their knees. The diver's buddy was next to them and in complete shock to what was going on. 15 years of diving instructor training came over me like it was second nature. I thought her regulator just came out, so I popped mine out and offered it to her, but then I noticed that she had mentally checked out. I popped my regulator back in my mouth and attempted to put my number 1 regulator in hers, but her teeth were completely clenched. Then I pressed the purge button to get air into her mouth and noticed her cheeks were moving, so I know air is getting in there. That was good enough for me. I grabbed her under her arm and the regulator flowing in her mouth, and I swam to the opening of the cavern and then up over 60 feet to get her to the surface. As I'm towing her in, she's regurgitating all the water that she swallowed and inhaled, and it seems like gallons of water at this point. Got her to land where the other divers assisted me in getting all the gear off. The crazy thing is that she didn't tell anyone she had epilepsy, and when we later reviewed her content on the form, she checked off no to epilepsy. I put myself at risk by shooting up to the surface like that, but if I came across that situation again, I would not hesitate to save someone's life. At number 6, the blackfish. Here on the Brazilian coast, there's a fish that resembles a shark, but it's considerably smaller, called colossal. You have to hunt these little guys at night because they're sort of nasty in the open, so it's easier to shoot them when they're in their coves. So my friend, let's call him Reggie, is about 1 kilometer from the coast, diving near a reef. This thing is massive, and you have to go really deep to get the slope on with the caves. Reggie said he had a feeling while descending that everything was off. The smaller fish were absent, there were no turtles, the water was murkier than usual. His partner stays back with the flashlight, and he gets closer to the reef. Reggie searches for the fish, but can't find any of the caco he wants, so he takes kinda long, and after a certain point, he feels a shift in the water like something big is swimming near him, just as the weak light from his partner waves frantically and then turns off. He doesn't know what to expect, so he goes into fight or flight mode, except he can't ascend too fast, so he tries to stay at the same level, then he cocks his harpoon, and he waits. He waits and waits, but he doesn't see anything murky in the seawater, not even his partner's light. That had to mean one of 2 things. Either his partner went out of batteries, or he saw something and didn't want to attract its attention. Reggie finally decided to start ascending very slowly. The weird feeling got worse and turned into chills, and as he was going up, he felt that same shift again, and did not hesitate to harpoon whatever it was, but he missed. He said he never saw something so big underwater, and it swam fast. Reggie couldn't make out much in the dark, like a proper shape or anything, but he noticed that the thing went deeper near the reef, so he tried to go up as fast as possible and make it up to the boat where his partner helped him up. Turns out his partner tried to warn him about it with the light because he saw something, quote, abnormally big swimming in a dangerous distance, but couldn't get to him because he felt like he was washed by the thing. They both called it the blackfish since they couldn't really see what it was. It was said to be as big as a man, about 1.7 meters.
Number 10, lost submersible. A frantic search was underway for a submersible that disappeared while on a $250,000 per person dive, carrying 5 tourists to view the historic Titanic shipwreck. The 21-foot submarine named the Titan, which was operated with a video game controller, carried the CEO of the company in charge and 4 passengers when it lost contact off the coast of Cape Cod. Passengers only had a 96-hour supply of oxygen that had depleted to just 40 hours since the harrowing journey began. Now, as I am filming this, some pieces of the Titan have been found and all aboard are presumed dead. Now, there are many different outcomes that could have happened. The best case scenario is that it imploded from all the pressure, meaning the people on board died almost instantly, and the worst case scenario is they were alive for all 96 hours, knowing they were lost and running out of oxygen as the air became thick. Then they all died hyper aware of everything and died slowly. Now, it's unknown how or why the equipment failed or what even happened. They could have been caught on something, but without help, it seems like their fate was set from the beginning. Rescuers are still looking for more of the submersible, and if we do find it, we can hopefully discover why and how this happened. Now, all I'm saying is I really think they got the best immersive Titanic experience ever, so I don't think they should be mad about it. Number 9. elongated skulls. Saqueum is a cenote located in Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. It's a place that the locals feared, and in 2012, a team of divers discovered the reason behind its fearsome reputation. An underwater survey discovered 2 chambers of the cenote littered with human bones, including deformed skulls. Archaeologists spent 2 weeks exploring the 2 chambers, and the skulls belong to all different sexes and ages, so they aren't thought to be as sacrifices. Which then begs the question, what are they doing buried deep underwater? Archaeologist Bradley Russell, who made the discovery, believes the dead may have been buried as some form of ritual, or that they could be the victims of a plague that swept through the area. You wouldn't want them near the rest of the population, and you wouldn't want to drink the water either, Russell explained. Regardless, that's creepy, and why are the skulls even elongated? Are they another species of human? I just have so many questions. Number 8. The Baltic Sea Anomaly. In 2011, a sonar image was taken by Peter Lindenberg, Dennis Aberg, and their Swedish ocean diving team for searching for treasure on the ocean floor in the Baltic Sea. What the picture showed was a seemingly non-natural 200-foot circular object with passageways and stairs. The discovery looked like something out of a Star Wars film, and many people believed it was a spaceship that sank to the bottom of the ocean. Samples taken from the area in 2012 were given to Swedish scientists who said there was nothing extraterrestrial about the area, but I'm not too sure about that. What Ocean X and the crew found was weird, and many still think there is a UFO lying at the bottom of the Baltic Sea, and there's another expedition of the area planned soon, so maybe we'll see. Number 7. The Monster of Lake Iliamna. Lake Iliamna is a lake in southwest Alaska at the north end of the Alaska Peninsula. It shares a name with the Iliamna River, which flows into it. It's the largest in Alaska, 3rd largest lake in the entirety of the United States. Now, local residents have a number of stories about the alleged Iliamna lake monster, an unknown aquatic creature. Speculation exists that reported sightings may be undocumented population of white sturgeon, which is a type of fish. If true, this would be the most northerly population known to exist, just a few hundred miles from the Arctic Circle. Jeremy Wade, presenter of Animal Planet's River Monsters, is among those who speculate these sightings of a monster is a white sturgeon. Others believe it's a Pacific sleeper shark, and evidence of this is corroborated by a 2012 YouTube video that shows a smaller Pacific sleeper shark in the lake, and there were several new sightings in 2017, and the Anchorage Daily News once offered a prize of $100,000 for concrete proof of its existence. Number 6. Unexplained sounds. Yes, there are several unexplained noises that have been recorded over the years, but 2 of the most popular being the bloop and Julia. Now, the name bloop sounds cute, but it's not. The bloop was actually an ultra-low frequency, high-amplitude underwater sound. Detected by the US National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, in 1997, the sound was loud, unprecedented, and eerie. Explanations offered included covert underwater military exercises, whales, giant squids, or a totally unknown sea creature. However, it seems glaciers were once again the culprit, with the sound judged to be consistent with ice calving, where large chunks of ice break off a glacier. But I'd like to believe it's something more sinister, even though that scares me a lot.
We're to start off the list with the discovery of World War II fighter planes. The North Sea has seen far too many battles to count, and a large amount of the remnants of these conflicts have sunk to the sea floor to be rediscovered decades later. During World War II, the North Sea played a major role as a battleground. There were tons of aerial conflicts between Allied and Axis forces. Many planes from both sides were lost during these battles, sinking into the depths of the sea, but underwater exploration technology has really advanced considerably over the years, with stuff like sonar technology and remotely operated vehicles, or ROVs, used to scan the sea floor. Underwater archaeologists have done a series of dives to find and document these lost planes. This is going to bring us to all the sunken submarines in the North Sea. Researchers have uncovered a series of sunken World War II era subs. The North Sea wasn't just at the center of aerial battle, but of course intense naval warfare too, with submarines playing a huge role on both sides. Many submarines were lost during the conflict, and as with the aircraft, many of these relics still sit at the bottom of the sea. Similar to the exploration of sunken planes, the discovery of submerged submarines involved cutting-edge underwater technology. Sonar scans, ROVs, and advanced mapping techniques were used to identify potential locations where these sunken submarines could be. It's fascinating looking at World War II artifacts, but there's an added darkness to discoveries like these because they remain exactly where they perished in battle, almost frozen in time. It's pretty haunting. And sticking with the wartime theme, we also have all sorts of unexploded ordnance still being found in the North Sea to this day. Happening across a sunken plane or a ship would be eerie, definitely. Anything old like that with a dark story behind it sitting at the bottom of the sea has a kind of grim air about it, but unexploded weaponry? Obviously super dangerous. There are still unexploded naval mines lurking beneath the sea, and between 1945 and 2008, at least 115 people have lost their lives because of these leftover explosives. In 1960, the Marmara, a cargo ship, triggered a mine, being the last known case of a vessel being sunk by a mine in the North Sea. Even today, decades later, these mines are still being discovered, posing a serious threat. In 2005, 3 Dutch fishermen died after landing a World War II bomb. Recently, in December of 2020, the crew of a British fishing boat just narrowly escaped with their lives when they came across unexploded ordnance, but some did suffer serious injuries. Recovering munitions from the 2 world wars is a massive challenge. The SS Kelsey, a cargo ship that sank in 1946 off the coast of England, exploded during a salvation attempt in 1967. The blast was felt as far away as the USA. Other dangerous wrecks, like the SS Richard Montgomery, with 1,400 tons of munitions, still sit in the North Sea. But it's not just these unexploded munitions that are a danger, though. We also have poison gas. Yeah, this is another concern. Near Noke, off the Belgian coast, leaks of mustard gas from World War I munitions dumped after the war have been detected in recent years. The gas was leaking from munitions dumps containing 35,000 tons of unexploded bombs, shells, and grenades. They were mostly German weapons, which had been buried in cement-filled containers after World War I, but traces of mustard gas and TNT started being found on the sandbank close to where they were dumped. Getting rid of all this stuff is not only super dangerous, but also it poses a serious threat to marine life, but it needs to be done. Next on the list, we have the countless number of shipwrecks. Take the discovery of the Liberty ship SS Richard Montgomery, grounded in the Thames estuary in 1944 with a cargo 1,400 tons of munitions. The ship is very visible today, especially at low tide. Its masts stick right out of the water. Not only are these ships haunting, but as stated before, a lot of them are pretty dangerous too, being that they're leftovers from the 2 world wars. These shipwrecks can be remarkably well preserved because of the cold temperature and high salinity of the water. But speaking of shipwrecks, the Flying Heart was an East India Trading Company vessel that sank in 1735, just off the coast of Zealand, and wasn't found until 1981. And oh boy, what a lucrative find it ended up being. This was pretty much your classic treasure hunt right here, although I'm sure they didn't get to keep what they found. Anyway, I'll explain. Back in the 18th century, the Flying Heart was sailing with a load of riches. It had just left the Remicades, heading for the East Indies, when everything went wrong. A powerful northeast gale, a treacherous spring tide, and a mistake by the pilot all played into it, but the ship ended up on a sandbank just behind its sister ship, the Anna Katharina. The storm was relentless, causing the Anna Katharina to break apart. Meanwhile, the Flying Heart fired its cannons to signal for trouble, but it slipped off the sandbank and ended up sinking into the water. Everyone on board lost their lives. The ship had been carrying gold and silver, and in 1981, divers came across the wreck. They couldn't believe their luck when they saw the piles of treasure lying on the ocean floor, just chests full of Mexican silver and Dutch gold coins. This one is less of a dark discovery and more of an awesome one, but if they had to give back all that gold, that would have been a pretty sad day. Next on the list we have one of the many creatures that call the North Sea home, the conger eel, which also happens to be the largest species of eel in the world by weight, reaching up to 159 pounds or more. But they get pretty large too, reaching lengths of up to 9 feet. There's some pretty cool videos of these things taken by divers, like this one here, where a diver starts feeding one fish. Just look at how it sucks the fish into its mouth like a vacuum. Or this video here of one swimming through the shallow waters of a beach. It looks like a sea serpent. One of the most striking features of the conger eel is its set of sharp, backward curving teeth. These teeth, combined with its strong, muscular, serpentine body, make it a very formidable predator. They prey on fish, crustaceans, and even smaller eels. They're also nocturnal creatures, venturing out under the cover of darkness to hunt, and during the day they often find shelter in crevices and rocky formations on the seafloor. Ever wished that a place like Atlantis really did exist? Well, this place is kinda close. Next up, we're talking about Doggerland. Doggerland is a submerged landscape beneath the North Sea, once connecting what is now Great Britain to mainland Europe. So thousands of years ago, during the last ice age, when global sea levels were considerably lower, this vast stretch of land provided a land bridge for early humans and animals to traverse between the British Isles and the European continent. As the glaciers began to recede around 10,000 years ago, the rising sea levels caused Doggerland to gradually disappear beneath the water. The area would have been full of rivers and lakes and marshes and plains, teeming with diverse flora and fauna, but this submerged landscape remained hidden for centuries until advances in technology, like we talked about before, then allowed scientists to uncover the remnants of this ancient landmass. Researchers have found evidence of ancient forests, like preserved tree stumps and plant material, and the remains of extinct animals like mammoths and aurochs who would have roamed the area.
Starting off this list, in our number 10 spot, we have the pink see-through Fantasia. While the name of these guys would kind of make someone think that they're like cool and sexy, in reality these guys are definitely not that. The pink see-through Fantasia is a sea cucumber normally found about 1.5 miles deep in the waters of the Celebes Sea, which is located in the western Pacific. These guys were actually discovered only quite recently in 2007, but there's something about them that might either prove that they've been here for much longer, or maybe they had quite the chance to develop their survival skills somewhere else. These guys are able, when frightened, to emit a light through bioluminescence in order to scare off potential predators. This animal of course gets its name through its see-through appearance and pink color, and this is what makes their intestines completely visible to the outside world. In our number 9 spot today we have the vampire squid. The scientific name of these creatures directly translates into vampire squid from hell, and they get their name from their fantastic red color, their glowing eyes, and their webbing in between the arms, which appears as a sort of cloak. Well, that's where the vampire part comes from. The squid part is a little trickier. While the vampire squid shares quality with both squid and octopuses, they don't actually belong to either of these families, and they are instead in a category of their own entirely. In the past, there were more members in this same family, but the vampire squid is now the last remaining member, which is why they are often referred to as a living fossil. In our number 8 spot today we have the leafy sea dragon. These are a creature that are definitely one of the coolest looking on this list. A lot of weird sea creatures tend to look absolutely horrifying, but these ones are most definitely a little easier on the eyes. These fish belong to the family that includes pipefish and seahorses, but they are the only species in their genus. The leafy sea dragon is most commonly found along the southern and western coasts of Australia, and they are very obviously named from their appearance. It would seem as though these guys would use these leafy protrusions to help propel them through the water, but that is not the case, and instead they are merely used as camouflage. These sea dragons are usually quite solitary, but they also have an incredible sense of direction. It was once thought that they didn't travel very far, but it was later discovered that they actually travel several hundred miles, but use this keen sense of direction to return to the same spots, which is actually very cool. In our number 7 spot today we have the fossil monster. Okay, so as the name would suggest, this isn't a still living creature, and instead is one that has been found in a fossil. These fossils pertaining to one particular creature have only been found in one spot, and they come from a time about 300 million years ago when what is now Illinois was covered in water. Found in the Mason Creek fossil beds, they have found the fossils of an animal called Telemonstrum gregarium, or simply the Tully monster. What is so unique about these fossils from this creature, other than the fact that it lived 300 million years ago, which is wild, is that attempts at classifying this creature have been highly controversial. Interpretations of this fossil have been likened to mollusks, arthropods, conodonts, worms, and vertebrates. It is super weird that this creature, with fossils located in only one place from 300 million years ago, is super hard to classify because it has a bunch of different attributes that could be placed in a number of different animal classes. I'm not saying it's an alien, I'm just saying it's a little mysterious. In our number 6 spot today, we have the mimic octopus. Octopuses in general are all insane. Like, I fully believe that basically all of them could be from another planet because I just don't understand how they look like that, how they're all so smart, and how they can individually use their little suckers. I don't know. They're just fascinating creatures, and the mimic octopus is no exception. These guys are normally found in the Indo-Pacific, and they get their name from their unbelievable ability to use chromatophores to blend in with their surroundings or perhaps to impersonate another marine animal. Most of the time they use this ability to defend themselves from predators, but they can also be seen using it to help them catch their prey. For example, they might appear as a crab's potential mate before they chomp down on their certainly confused and surprised tasty snack.
To start us off, this peculiar attraction is a little counterintuitive. I don't know about you, but I usually try to keep my mail dry and far away from water as possible. Well, this resort, located off of Vanuatu's Hideaway Island Resort and Marine Sanctuary, had a different idea. Why not create the world's first and only underwater post office? Approximately 3 meters down and just off of the coast lies an incredible and kitschy once-in-a-lifetime experience. Visitors are encouraged to don snorkeling gear and dive on down to the underwater post. They'll be met by a post employee and can send off a specialty waterproof postcard while visiting the resort. Oh, and don't worry, there's a photo op there so you can prove it happened. Next up, said to once be one of the greatest port cities around the world, this ancient Egyptian city dates back 2,300 years. Yes, you heard that right. The long-lost city of Thonis Heraklion is believed to be, quote, one of the greatest submerged discoveries ever. Located about 32 kilometers northeast of Alexandria on the Mediterranean Sea, it was uncovered in the early 2000s by divers, who initially discovered a piece of a statue of Hapi, the Greek god of fertility and lord of the river. This of course piqued their interest, so they continued their search and uncovered jewels, ruins, and pottery dating back thousands of years. Sadly, this recreational diving is not allowed at the site, but hey, all you need to do is become an archaeologist and you can check it out for yourself. Next up, we've all heard of Stonehenge, but what if I told you researchers may have found an underwater equivalent? Discovered in 2007, a group of archaeologists found something a little different from the usual day-to-day shipwreck scene. About 12 meters down in the waters of Lake Michigan is an eerie rock formation that is believed to be 10,000 years old. This Stonehenge-like building is thought to be a man-made due to the nature of its structure, as well as the stones measuring about the same distance across. But that wasn't the only thing that caught their eye, as one of the rocks appears to have a carving of a mastodon, a dinosaur that died out more than 10,000 years ago. While the exact coordinates of this incredible find are top secret, due to the locals wanting to keep swarms of tourists at bay, it's no denying that this is one place we'd all love to crack the code to find. This next location is found in the gorgeous waters of the Mexican Caribbean. Have you ever thought your museum tour was missing something? Less oxygen? What about a snorkeling gear? Well, I'm here to tell you that your dreams have finally come true. Home to more than 500 permanent sculptures, this underwater museum of art, or Musa, is once in a lifetime visit. Visitors are able to explore the attraction by diving, snorkeling, or if swimming isn't your thing, you can even view it by glass-bottom boats. This non-profit organization aims to reduce visitations to natural corals and raise awareness for environmental conservation. I don't know about you, but I'll be sure to add this to my next trip to Cancun. This attraction is located in Thingvellir National Park in Iceland. It's an amazing underwater location like no other.
The Silfra Crack, or Silfra Fissure, is essentially what it sounds like. It's a huge crack in the earth. This fissure is part of the Atlantic Rift, the line between Europe and America, and it's where the continental plates meet. Over the years, this crack is slowly widening. Experts say about 2 centimeters per year. Though it's barely visible in the Atlantic Ocean, in the icy Icelandic waters, it's clear as day. The Silfra Crack remains a popular diving spot, but if you want to take it one step further, you can venture down the deep cave to see what lies beneath the surface. But divers be warned, as it is a major earthquake risk and the rocks could collapse at any moment.
Kicking off the list at number 10, lost treasure. Alright, listen up you buccaneers. There have been so many shipwrecks all throughout history that right now, at this moment, there's about $60 billion worth of sunken treasure just waiting. Just out there waiting for you to put on your goggles and explore. Deep sea exploration teams have found a few recently. That's exciting. Back in 2012, we discovered the Port Nicholson, which was a World War II British merchant ship that sunk with 70 tons of platinum ingots. So many ingots. Ingots? Gots? Ingots. All the ingots or gits. That's over $3 billion worth of treasure. Not too shabby. Shortly after that, shipwreck hunters found the remains of HMS Victory, ironic name, which sank back in 1744 with $1 billion worth of gold. It's not just finders keepers though, you know, as lovely as that sounds, this is not national treasure. Treasure belongs to people, before and after the commute. When an American company recovered $500 million in gold and silver from a ship in Spain that went down back in 1804, they lost the rights to their treasure. They lost the rights to the treasure they found. That is so, can you imagine that? Guys were rich. Just kidding. The Senora de la Mercedes was a Spanish ship that sunk back in 1804. It was loaded with gold, silver, and spices, all the good stuff. It was found at the bottom of the Atlantic back in 2007, and these finders thought that they had 500 million. We're rich, and we can maybe pay off our student loans with this money. Who knows? They were rich until the Spanish government sued the exploration team in 2012, taking all that treasure right back. All of this treasure. Yeah, not theirs anymore. Number 9, magnificent alien. How don't I talk about this little guy? Here we go. While the rest of the world was in panic mode, a new sea sponge was discovered in 2020, named Advena magnifica, which translates to magnificent alien. Literally, this thing's a little alien by himself. This sponge literally gets its name because it looks like ET. And to be fair, yeah, it looks like ET. Little phone home looking. An ROV found this sample over 6,000 feet deep in the Pacific Ocean. They found it in what they called a forest of weird. That's just what you want to hear. Hey, how's the ocean? Oh, it's weird. Great, I'm not gonna ask anymore. Just alien sponges sticking their ET heads out hoping for some passing food. That's what the ocean is. Cristiana Costello Branco, the researcher who found this deep sea squishy, explains the discovery in an NOAA interview, saying, as all of these organisms are intricately connected, by documenting and describing marine biodiversity, we are building a better understanding of life and the impact of humans on Earth, and in this case, in the ocean. End quote. This little guy is the key to humanity's survival. I feel it. You can see it in his eyes, really, he's confident. Number 8, underneath Thwaites Glacier. We've seen some fascinating stuff here on Most Amazing Top 10, specifically underwater footage. We can't get enough of it. We love exploring the deep, as do you, hence why you're here. Hi, welcome back, thank you. Hit that thumbs up. This next one, I honestly couldn't believe. It's actual footage from the bottom of an Antarctic glacier. This glacier, though, is the size of Florida. So if it collapses, our sea levels could rise 10 feet. So yeah, let's drill a hole through the middle and see what's up. We'll send a camera down, no problem. In 2019, researchers did just that. They drilled 2,300 feet through the Thwaites Glacier, dropped a robot with a camera down it, and saw this. Now this is the first time we've ever seen the grounding zone of Thwaites Glacier. Lead scientist Brittany Schmidt says this project is a dream come true. Yeah, no doubt, this is beautiful. She describes it as her walking on the moon moment. There's only a meter of space between the bottom of the glacier and the rocky seafloor. Would you swim underneath it? Be honest. I would. No, I wouldn't. I would do this. And come back really quick. Number 7, the rare whalefish. Located in California's Monterey Bay, scientists were able to get a close look at a fish with no eyes. So he probably didn't know he was being filmed. That's just unfair if you ask me. This little guy over here relies on his other senses to hunt and pick up on its surroundings. This footage was from over 6,000 feet deep, so the lack of light just decided the whalefish doesn't need eyes anymore in evolution. Isn't that great what evolution's like? You know what? You don't need eyes. It's pretty dark. You're good. Give me them, Jeepers Creepers, give me your eyes. It's great to get footage of them because whalefish are rarely recorded in the deep, let alone recorded alive. This guy is alive and well. Look at him go. Not too fast, not too slow, just he's on his own pace. He's doing his own thing. Number 6, not treasure. We kick this list off with some deep sea treasure. That's always fun, you know, until it gets reclaimed and your year's worth of exploring goes to waste. But many deep sea ROV trips are not ideal. They're not fun. We don't always find a mammoth tusk or a glow-in-the-dark shark. Sometimes we find barrels of waste. This dump site here was discovered off the coast of LA, 3,000 feet deep. These ROVs found around 27,000 barrels of waste. Yeah, you thought I was gonna say 27. That's pretty bad. Add thousands. The 2021 discovery was deemed staggering. Yep, I'd say so. You can literally see in these photos this aura of toxic waste like emitting from it. I don't see any ET sponges here. This is a graveyard. This is no good. ET wants nothing to do with this.
Now, what sea creatures did we actually evolve from? Well, the story of human origins takes us back about 540 million years to a tiny, wriggling sea creature called Saccharidus. This creature was only about a millimeter in size. It lived in the sand on the ocean floor. They had a sack-like body with a large mouth, but no rear end. That means it likely had to do its number twos through its mouth. How far we've come. Saccharidus is considered one of the earliest known ancestors of all deuterostomps, a major group of animals that eventually led to creatures like fish, starfish, and eventually humans like you and me. Even though Saccharidus was very simple, it was the next step in the evolutionary tree. It had this flexible skin and some muscles, allowing it to move by wriggling through the sand. It probably ate by sucking in tiny particles or small creatures. Mudskippers are pretty fascinating if you think about how they bridge this gap between aquatic life and life here on land. They're kind of like a cross between a frog and a fish, and they've got some cool adaptations that show how life can start to make the leap from water to land. Mudskippers are an amphibious fish that can spend a lot of their time out of the water. They're found in swamps and mudflats, and they use their pectoral fins kind of like legs to walk across the mudflats. What's even more interesting is that mudskippers breathe air. They have specialized gills that can retain moisture, which allows them to absorb oxygen from the air. This allows them to live outside the water for long stretches of time. Their ability to move on land and breathe air could suggest that these things are in a sort of intermediate stage in evolution, and it's pretty cool because it kind of gives us a glimpse of what early fish might have gone through as they adapted to living on land, eventually leading to us. Mudskippers also have eyes that are adapted to both underwater and land. They haven't evolved into human-like creatures yet, but they could eventually lead to a new life form way down the line. The smooth handfish. This is or was a species of handfish found in Australia. It was classified as extinct in 2020, but just a year later that was switched to data deficient, so there may still be a handful out there. These fish were very strange. They had a very unusual way of getting around. Instead of swimming in the traditional sense, it used its pectoral fins, like legs, to kind of walk along the sea floor. Weird, but pretty cool. They may have been moving across the ocean floor in a similar way to how early vertebrates might have moved on land. The handfish's fins evolved into broad, paddle-like shapes that helped it walk or glide, which is a big step in the direction of a more land-like movement. Unfortunately, these things may be totally extinct, but I mean, who knows what direction they could have gone in evolutionarily. Not that we'd be around to see it anyway. There's a pretty wild but fascinating hypothesis about human evolution, the Aquatic Ape Hypothesis, the idea that some of our early ancestors might have lived in an aquatic environment, like swamps or shallow seas, instead of just on land. The basic idea is that these early humans adapted to life in water, which influenced their development, eventually leading to what we are today. One of the main points of this hypothesis is that our ancestors could have spent a lot of time wading, swimming, or diving, and that this might explain some of our more unique traits compared to other primates. For example, humans have relatively hairless skin, which could have been an adaptation for staying cool, reducing drag in the water, our ability to hold our breath, The fact that we have semi-webbed toes and hands, the way we walk upright, could have had something to do with evolving in an environment where we had to move through deeper bodies of water and, be upright. All of this could have had something to do with our possible aquatic activities way back in time. Here's something you gotta think about when exploring the deep sea: earthquakes and tsunamis. Getting caught up in a natural disaster while deep underwater is incredibly dangerous. Astronauts have a lot to worry about, but earthquakes aren't one of them. You don't gotta worry about the Earth's crust shifting when you're not on Earth. Seismic activity beneath the ocean doesn't just trigger destruction on land, it also triggers massive waves, which can of course cause serious problems out at sea. First, you've got underwater earthquakes, giant shudders that happen deep beneath the ocean's surface when tectonic plates shift and grind against each other. We're talking about seismic waves that can shake the ocean floor like a rag doll. So, if you're diving or exploring the deep sea when one of these earthquakes hits, not good. You'd be tossed around with no control over where you're going or what's gonna happen next. And these underwater earthquakes can trigger tsunamis, massive walls of water traveling at high speed, swallowing up everything in their path. Ships, submarines, entire cities along coastlines. Tsunamis are a nightmare scenario for researchers out at sea. Imagine a tsunami barreling towards you from miles away, and by the time you realize what's happening, it's too late. You're caught in this storm of swirling water and debris with no way out, and even if you manage to escape the immediate danger, the aftermath of an underwater earthquake can be just as deadly. The seabed can shift and change in an instant, creating underwater landslides and whirlpools. Now let's talk more about landslides though. These can also be brought on by methane hydrate deposits. Methane hydrate deposits are basically chunks of ice that trap methane gas inside of them. These deposits are stable under high pressure and low temperatures, but when these conditions change, like if the ocean, say, is warming up or if the pressure drops, the methane hydrates can break down and release the methane gas. There are tons of these deposits sitting under the seabed, just waiting to be disturbed, and if that happens, the methane gas shoots up to the surface like a rocket, creating massive bubbles that can swallow up ships and cause explosions. And as I mentioned, there's the landslide part. Methane hydrate deposits can help stabilize the seafloor, so when they break down, it can lead to underwater landslides. These landslides can be massive, a bit like underwater avalanches. Another one of the many dangers of the sea: rogue waves, aka freak waves, killer waves, or monster waves, and they live up to their name. These are massive waves that can appear without warning, so pretty big threats to ships. You could be cruising along and enjoying the salty breeze when out of nowhere a massive wall of water, taller than a 10-story building, comes crashing down on you. They can appear seemingly out of nowhere in the middle of calm seas, and I wasn't exaggerating before. They can be huge. We're talking over 100 feet tall sometimes, which is insane. That's like a skyscraper just suddenly rising up from the ocean. What makes them so scary though is that unpredictability. They don't follow the usual patterns of waves, so sailors can't really prepare for them, at least not entirely. In one moment, you could be sailing smooth, and the next, you're facing towering walls of water that could easily capsize even large ships. And scientists still don't fully understand what causes rogue waves. One of the most dangerous sections of Earth's waters is the Sargasso Sea. The Sargasso Sea is like this floating jungle in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, but instead of trees, it's made of a unique type of seaweed called sargassum. This seaweed forms thick mats that can stretch for miles, and it creates this tangled maze. It's a bit eerie. It's kind of like a big floating desert. There's not much else around it except for the seaweed, and that sounds kind of peaceful, but for sailors, it's a different story. Navigating through all that sargassum is actually proven to be pretty dangerous. The Sargasso Sea has a very dark reputation. It's kinda known for swallowing up ships, and over the centuries there have been all these tales of sailors getting trapped in the area, the ships unable to move as they're slowly engulfed by the seaweed. Sounds awful. Underwater caves. Lots of divers have died exploring them. There are labyrinths beneath beneath the surface of the ocean. And sure, they're exciting places to explore, they can be beautiful, but they're also packed with dangers. First off,
starting off this countdown, we have the violent Whirlpool. Located in Scotland, the Corrigium Maelstrom is a permanent, powerful vortex. In fact, this is said to be the third strongest in the world, and depending on the weather conditions, this thing can get pretty deadly. In fact, there are countless tales of ships being sucked into the Whirlpool's vortex. The lucky ones will just get spun out of control, but they'll survive. Not only that, but this Whirlpool can produce standing waves as high as 15 feet high. So you don't want to be anywhere near it when that happens. In our 9th spot, we have the Underwater Memorial. The sunken crosses of Malpeque is an underwater graveyard located in Spain. This spot commemorates a group of 16th century missionaries that were killed by pirates before being thrown into the sea. The site features 40 stone crosses at the bottom of the sea off of the coast of La Palma in the Canary Islands. The site was created in 2000. Locals created one cross for each person that was killed, and then they purposely had them sunk in their honor. So it is literally an underwater graveyard, which is cool, but it's also creepy at the same time. It is now forever a site to remember the horrors that happened to these people. Moving on to number 8, we have Jason Voorhees. Imagine you're swimming along in a lake minding your own business when all of a sudden you see Jason from Friday the 13th chained to the bottom of the lake. I don't know about you, but I would become like Michael Phelps and just speed swim my way out of that ocean. Here's the thing, there is a Jason at the bottom of a lake. Turns out that someone put a creepy statue of Jason Voorhees at the bottom of a lake in Arizona. The chains around him add a creepy touch as well. Turns out the statue was placed in Lake Pleasant in 2018 by a diver named Zachary Nagy. According to him, it took weeks upon weeks to make. When asked why he did it, he said that it is common for divers to place objects underwater, kind of to act like a marker. Apparently there's a poker table, fake skeletons, even a Christmas tree down there as well. But this one is definitely the creepiest. It must have given some of the divers quite a fright when they first swam into it. Now, Lake Pleasant Regional Park supervisors as well as local officials instructed Zachary to remove the statue. He didn't end up doing so though. But the creepiest part? When they went down there to remove it themselves, it was nowhere to be seen. Moving on to number 7, we have the underwater Stonehenge. England's Stonehenge is a pretty mysterious site. There's a lot we don't know about it, like how was it built? What was its purpose? So on and so on. Well, it turns out that there is a Stonehenge located underwater. It can be found at the bottom of Lake Michigan. There are a bunch of random rock formations that scientists have been struggling to explain, but it's believed that they are thousands of years old. What makes it even weirder is that on one of these stones, they discovered a carving of a mastodon, a relative of an elephant that went extinct like over 10,000 years ago. So they're like, maybe this structure has been here since the last ice age. We really don't know how old they truly are, who built them, and why. In our 6th spot, we have the massive shark statue. So it appears as if divers enjoy giving other divers heart attacks. This time, someone placed a giant shark statue underwater. Holy, if I saw that thing, I legit would have a heart attack, or I'd probably just choke on the water and drown. The shark can be found in Lake Neuchatel in Switzerland. This is 10 times scarier than Jason. Like at first glance, it looks real.
And we're gonna start things off with Point Doom underwater base. So off the coast of Point Doom in Malibu, there seems to be this mysterious structure lying about 6 miles underwater. Images captured on Google Earth show an oval-shaped object resting on the seabed floor. Looks like it has a large flat top and what seems to be pillars or columns. Looking at it, it definitely looks like the entrance to something. It sits about 2,000 feet beneath the ocean surface, spanning nearly 3 miles in width, and some speculate that it could be more than just a naturally formed structure. And yes, some even think it could be an underwater alien base. Jimmy Church, who hosts a California-based radio show called Fade to Black, was pretty excited about the images, stating, "My first impression was that it was Greek. It looked artificial and didn't look natural. When you're looking at it from above, It's a nearly perfect oval shape. In the natural surroundings, nothing is symmetrical. Everything is eroded and covered in rocks and sloping and peaking, and right here for 2 miles it is a perfect oval with a black separation or outline to it. It just stands out that it has to be some type of roof. It's not unlike a dome stadium or a covered indoor racetrack or an Olympic arena. It's got that feel to it. It looks like a perfect oval man-made structure sitting on a construction site. Next up, we have the Solomon Islands UFOs. There have been some very strange things said to go on here for hundreds and hundreds of years, and not only have locals claimed to see strange lights in the sky, but also coming up from under the water as well, which has led to a pretty intense theory that there could be an underwater alien base there. There have always been local legends of monstrous giants on the islands, 10-foot tall, hairy creatures with flat noses and glowing red eyes. That, combined with the reports of strange lights in the sky, moving with incredible speed and agility, could mean there may be some kind of connection here. You see, some of these lights and strange flying objects have been seen descending down into the trees of the Guadalcanal or rising up from the ocean and zipping around before diving back down. There are also legends that these giants that are said to live on the island move around through subterranean tunnels. So some speculate that beneath the surface of the ocean is this hidden structure where extraterrestrial beings may be conducting their activities. Next up, we have Hy Brasil, a small mythological island off the coast of Ireland. According to Celtic folklore, this island is said to lie off the west coast of the country, appearing only every 7 years, usually surrounded by mist. The island is often described as a paradise with advanced technology and a society living in total harmony with nature. Sailors and explorers have reported spotting the island for centuries, claiming to have seen strange creatures and these glowing god-like beings there. Maps from the 14th to the 19th centuries often included Hy Brasil, but its exact location was always a bit of a mystery. Now, of course, it sounds like complete folklore, which Celtic culture is absolutely full of, but what if there's something else going on here? Well, some have suggested that the islands appearing and disappearing could have an extraterrestrial connection. The idea is that aliens could be using advanced cloaking technology or have a hidden base on or beneath the island, and the mysterious creatures that some sailors claimed to have seen on the island do sound like they could be alien-like, but it's still a total mystery as to what they'd be doing over there. Next up on the list, we have strange skulls that were found in an underwater cave in Mexico. So in 2012, divers were exploring a cenote and the Yucatan Peninsula where they came across 2 chambers full of human bones, and some of these bones were human skulls, but there was something off about them. They were elongated. Now, the ancient Maya were said to have performed human sacrifices in the area, and skull deformation was also practiced in various parts of Mexico way back when. There are theories as to why, but nothing entirely concrete. One idea is that high-ranking members of society had elongated skulls. Some say that people's skulls were elongated just to differentiate certain groups from one another, but there's also the theory that these skulls never belonged to human beings at all. Pretty common knowledge, of course, that there are tons of conspiracy theories surrounding the ancient Maya, including the presence of extraterrestrials that may have helped them construct all their intricate advanced cities. So could these skulls have belonged to these supposed alien beings? It's possible. Next up, we have the Lake Baikal incident. So this lake in southern Siberia is the world's largest freshwater lake by volume. It's incredibly deep, and there are some pretty eerie stories about it. First of all, there's all the mysterious lights that are reported, not just hovering or flying above it, but also coming from the depths of the water. And there's a very creepy story that was supposedly an attempted cover-up by the Russian government. So in 1982, a team of Navy divers were doing a routine diving exercise in the lake when a number of them started spotting something pretty disturbing. There were all these figures deep under the water. They were tall and slender, well over 6 feet tall, and wearing what looked to be silver suits. Those suits could have also been silvery scales. They also had large, circular, glowing, unblinking eyes. The creatures began chasing after the divers, or swimming after them, rather, and the divers panicked and then swam back up to the surface, and they reported what they'd seen to their superiors, but that's where the story ends. The existence of the strange creatures has never been confirmed or denied. Next up, we have underwater alien bases in Alaska. So claims of alleged alien bases lurking beneath the waters off the coast of Alaska have been around for quite a while, but in recent years, the idea of them has become more of a popular thing, mostly thanks to Ancient Aliens. Thank you, Ancient Aliens. But apparently, there are even eyewitness accounts dating back several decades, which have been mostly undisclosed until recently. UFOologists and UFO enthusiasts have now been turning their attention to the mysterious activities in the waters of Alaska. One incident dates back to 1945, when crew members of a ship reported spotting an unidentified craft. Researchers, including members of MUFON, or the Mutual UFO Network, which is a non-profit organization that studies reported UFO sightings, they think it's possible that extraterrestrial beings have been constructing bases beneath the ocean's surface, and that's because there are tons of reports of UFO movements over the water. There were also a number of UFO sightings in the 40s that weren't disclosed to the public at the time. These undisclosed reports allegedly provide evidence that there are extraterrestrial entities operating in the waters off the coast of Alaska. This next story comes to us from Reddit, and although what this person saw wasn't technically under the water, it was floating just above it, and it's a pretty fascinating account. The story comes to us from user Keslow, who writes, I used to live in Charleston, South Carolina back around 2006, and I had a job that had me leaving home at about 4 a.m. I lived in a bad part of town near the International Airport Joint Base, so when I left, I did a scan of the area before getting into my car. One morning, I stepped out of my home to do my scan and noticed that there were thin, wispy clouds flowing in off the ocean. Basically, it was a thin fog, about 1,000 to 1,500 feet up, moving like a river. I also noticed at this point that there were two effing moons. One is obscured by the thin clouds, our real moon, and the other is most definitely under the clouds. It was a sphere of glowing white light. It made no sound and did not move. After about 2 minutes, it bolted eastward towards the ocean. The glowing light faded quickly right as it took off as well. I've seen planes move near the speed of sound, and this thing went from 0 to like 3,000 miles per hour instantly. No acceleration. Much faster than the speed of sound with no sonic boom. I hope I don't see it again, especially on the water. I always wondered if it bolted because they saw me watching them. Next up, we have the strange reports of a large disc-like object being spotted in the Indian Ocean. Apparently, as far back as 1873, ships sailing the Indian Ocean from the Persian Gulf to the South China Sea have reported spotting a massive mile-wide disc passing beneath their boats, accompanied by large, rotating lights. One of the earliest documented sightings happened on March 23rd of 1873, when the ship Adelaide traversed the South China Sea. Witnesses reported floating over a huge, glowing circular object beneath the ocean's surface. On May 15th, 1879, the crew of the HMS Vulture described the sighting of two large Ferris wheels spinning in opposite directions. The spokes of these wheels were reported to be 25 feet wide, with 100 feet of space between them. There have been tons of these reports in various locations in the Indian Ocean, over the years. On April 4th, 1901, for example, in the Persian Gulf, the crew of the SS Kilwa claimed to see rays of light emanating from an underwater disc-like object. And even in 1943, in the Persian Gulf, a sailor named Matthew Mangle reported a huge glowing disc beneath the water's surface pacing his ship. And these are just a handful of examples. And coming in at second place is the Michigan Stonehenge. So in 2007, a professor of underwater archaeology, Mark Hawley, made a pretty incredible discovery. It was this arrangement of stones lying on the lake bed, looking a lot like Stonehenge in England. The stones are laid out in a circular pattern, and some even appear to be arranged in a line. They're about 40 feet below the surface of the lake. So what was the purpose of this formation? Could it be the remnants of an ancient civilization? Could extraterrestrials have constructed it thousands of years ago? They look like they've been placed in a pretty precise pattern. Doesn't look to be natural forming to me. And of course, there's also a rock with a mastodon carved into it. Hard to believe something like that would be created naturally. What's also really fascinating is that these stones are believed to be about 9,000 years old, predating Stonehenge by about 4,000 years. And finally, it's only natural that we finish things off with what has to be the most famous strange object discovered deep beneath the sea, the Baltic Sea anomaly. So back in the summer of 2011, a team of Swedish treasure hunters didn't come across any treasure in terms of monetary gain anyway, but they did find something pretty cool, a sonar image that seems to show a strange UFO-like object on the sea floor. Peter Lindbergh, the leader of the treasure hunting team, would be so awesome just to be able to say you're the leader of a treasure hunting team. I could say that and I'd just be like digging through my backyard finding nothing. But this guy actually goes out on boats and submarines and does it. I didn't get that job. Anyway, he's the leader of Ocean X and was pretty astonished by what he had found, saying the object definitely didn't look like a natural formation. And even though a number of researchers have come out and said it probably is a natural formation, I still get excited looking at this thing. I don't know, I'm just not entirely convinced. I'm on the fence about this one. But what do you guys think? Alien craft, ancient artifact, just some mundane natural formation? Let us know down in them comments.
We're now at our fifth and halfway mark with the Sunken Sculpture Park. Located in the Caribbean just off the coast of Grenada, you will find a number of underwater statues. Some of them include life-sized casts of local children or a ring of people holding hands. Nowadays, the sculptures are covered in vegetation and in barnacles. The ocean has completely claimed them. So I won't lie, it looks pretty creepy, but it definitely is a place to see. In our fourth spot, we have the Dead Humans. Now, this is a very undeniably creepy art site. Located just off the coast of North Africa in the shallow waters around one of the Canary Islands, you have 200 human figures laying dead on the ocean floor. This was an art installation trying to highlight global warming. All the dead humans are said to be victims of global warming. This site is called Human Gyre and it is open to the public if you wish to dive down and see it for yourself. If you do, you'll see a ring of humans stacked on top of each other. If I dove down and I didn't have a warning about what this was, I would literally think that it was a portal to hell or something. Coming in at number 3, we have the Dragon's Triangle. The Dragon's Triangle, or the Devil's Sea, or the Pacific Bermuda Triangle, is an area where a number of different ships and military vessels have gone missing, which is why it's considered the Pacific Bermuda Triangle. Fun, not so fun fact, it is considered one of the most dangerous marine locations around the world. In 1950, a team of researchers exploring the area set out, and they never returned home. Their bodies were never found. And over the years, a number of US and Japanese ships have gone missing in that area. One time, 9 American ships went missing in that area on a day with perfect weather. To this day, they haven't been found, and we literally don't know what happened to them. Moving on at number 2, we have the Mariana Trench. The Mariana Trench is located in the western part of the Pacific Ocean, and it is the deepest part of the ocean. It is about 2,550 kilometers long and 69 kilometers wide. The exact depth, though, is unknown because we haven't been able to get to the bottom of it, which makes it pretty creepy. Scientists say that there could be sea creatures down there that we have never even heard of, but we won't be able to find out because we can't get down there. It's so deep that apparently if you take Mount Everest and put it in the trench, its summit would still be underwater by more than 2 kilometers. So yeah, it's really deep and creepy. And And in our number 1 spot today, we have the ghost ships. Now, there is an area in the ocean rumored to be incredibly haunted, and this is located just adjacent to the Bermuda Triangle. How fitting. So this is the shoreless Sargasso Sea. There's no shoreline, hence its name. Its boundaries are ocean currents. Not only is it filled with seaweed so thick that it floats on the surface of the water, but it's haunted. A number of people have spotted long lost ships floating in the area. When they pull up to it, no one is on board. Not only that, but others have claimed to see faces appear in the seaweed, as if someone was trapped in the ocean looking up at them. How creepy is that?
Navigating through an underwater cave is like trying to find your way through a pitch black maze. There are tunnels and chambers crisscrossing in all directions, and if you're not careful, it's easy to get lost. Imagine swimming deeper and deeper into the darkness with no idea which way is up or down. Then you have the risk of getting trapped. Some caves have narrow passages that can squeeze you in, and if you're not careful, you could find yourself wedged with no way out. Another danger of the deep sea are blue holes. These are basically underwater sinkholes, and they can be deceivingly beautiful because they're also incredibly dangerous. Giant gaping chasms in the ocean floor plunging down into the depths. You can see them from the sky. They're often darker blue in color, contrasting with the surrounding water, and they're dark because of how deep they are, for one, and sunlight can't reach the bottom. These holes vary in size and depth. Some extend several hundred feet below the ocean surface. The scariest thing about blue holes is that a lot of them are uncharted territory. Unlike on land, where we have maps and signs to help guide us, most blue holes are unexplored. You never know what you might encounter down there. Who knows what could be living in these areas, for one, but aside from that, there could be dangerous currents, and things do live in some of these blue holes. The Great Blue Hole off the coast of Belize, for example, has been explored, and there are tons of different shark species living down there. So these aren't places you can just go for a casual dive. Deep beneath the ocean's surface, there are these eerie chimneys called black smokers. These are hydrothermal vents on the ocean floor that emit superheated water, which is rich in minerals. But the extreme temperatures and the toxic chemicals can make these areas incredibly dangerous. They're a bit like underwater volcanoes, but instead of spewing lava, they belch out super hot water loaded with minerals. They're found near the edges of tectonic plates, where the Earth's crust is pulling apart, and when cold seawater seeps down into the cracks and meets hot magma below, it gets heated up and then shoots back out of the seafloor in these towering columns of scalding water. The water coming out can be hotter than boiling. We're talking temperatures that would cook you alive. And if that's not scary enough, they're also chock full of toxic chemicals like hydrogen sulfide, which can knock you out cold with just one whiff. Not that you'd really be swimming around down there anyway, to be fair, but still. So the conditions in these areas are pretty extreme, but there is actually life that can survive around black smokers, like tube worms, shrimp. There's a whole ecosystem down there that's adapted to thrive in one of the most inhospitable environments on Earth, which is pretty cool. Drowning is said to be one of the worst ways to go, and one easy way to drown, just get caught in a giant swirling vortex of water, a whirlpool. These are kind of like the black holes of the ocean, less mysterious of course, but incredibly deadly. And unlike black holes, which are way too far away from us to cause any harm, even for astronauts, whirlpools are everywhere. One of the most infamous whirlpools is called the Moskstraumen off the coast of Norway. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. Probably not. Its currents are strong enough though to suck down ships, which can be torn apart like paper. Whirlpools can be massive, stretching for miles across, so if you happen to stumble on one while sailing or swimming, eesh. That's all I'm gonna say is just eesh. And whirlpools can be unpredictable. They can form out of nowhere with no warning signs to let you know they're coming. So even if you're the most experienced sailor or swimmer, at the end of the day, we're all still at the mercy of Mother Nature. For all the terrifying creatures that are known to exist, there are also the mysterious ones, creatures that science hasn't documented, but people have claimed to see, and as intriguing as that is, it's just another one of the many reasons the deep sea is such a dangerous place. There are tons of creatures we could talk about. Let's take a creature that doesn't get talked about a whole lot though, a creature that's been dubbed the Moa Moa. The first documented sighting of the moa moa was on June 8th of 1890 on Great Sandy Island in Western Australia by a school teacher named Selina Lovell and a small group of her students. The creature was reported to be this huge monster turtle fish thing measuring about 30 feet in length. The creature was described as having a domed shaped body, almost like a turtle shell, about 8 feet across by 5 feet high, with an elongated neck and a 12-foot long tail. The creature's rounded jaws measured what looked to be about 18 inches. The head and tail almost looked like they belonged to two different animals. Lovell didn't get a good glimpse of the creature's feet, but locals have described the moa moa having almost alligator-like feet. Lovell watched the creature for half an hour from only about 5 feet away. Afterward, the moa moa turned towards the sea, lifting its body and tail above the water, tossing fish into the air, and then swam back down into the deeper water. And finally, I just gotta mention ghosts. Now, I know that sounds a bit silly. Most astronauts and scientists aren't really all that concerned about ghosts, but I mean, just think of all the ships that have sank or gone missing entirely, all the planes that have gone down and sank to the bottom of the water never to be seen again, all the battles that have taken place out at sea. Unlike the black void of space surrounding us here on Earth, our planet's waters are full of life, but also full of death. There are so many immediate dangers, so much unexplored territory. It's no wonder there are so many tales of ghost ships sailing aimlessly across the sea, or tortured spirits rising from the water to drag unsuspecting sailors into the depths. There could be tons of life out there in space and plenty of dangers we can't even fathom. But until we're able to venture out far enough, it seems like taking a trip to the moon may be a safer one than venturing down into the deepest, darkest depths of our very own planet. Octopuses. I mean, these are some of the most fascinating creatures in the sea. These guys not only look wild, but they're incredibly smart, and their intelligence could hint at some amazing possibilities for the very distant future. Octopuses have brains that are surprisingly complex for invertebrates, and they've shown some impressive problem-solving skills. One of the coolest things about octopuses is their ability to use tools. They can open jars, they can mimic other animals, they can create shelters out of like coconut shells. They have a level of brain power that's pretty advanced compared to most other animals. They also have incredible camouflage skills, changing color and texture to blend in with their surroundings. So with their smarts and adaptability, some scientists wonder if octopuses could potentially evolve into more complex forms in the very distant future. If they were to evolve further, who knows what kind of adaptations they might develop. They already have a level of intelligence and problem-solving ability that could, in theory, lead to even more advanced capabilities over millions of years, even eventually evolving into a more human-like species similar to our boy Kit Fisto. Of course, this would happen long after we're extinct or have left Earth and evolved into who knows what. The axolotl is one of the coolest amphibians out there. First of all, they're very cute. Some people keep them as pets. I've heard they're not great pets, but anyway, they're famous also for their ability to regenerate lost body parts like limbs, spinal cords, even parts of their heart. They completely regrow these parts without scarring. That's like an anime level power right there. And unlike most amphibians that go through a complete metamorphosis from larvae to adult form, axolotls stay in their larval state throughout their entire lives. Now, let's imagine if these things had evolved in a different direction. Their regenerative abilities might have pushed them towards developing even more sophisticated abilities, and who knows, it could in the future. For example, if they continued to live in water but evolved to have more complex limbs, they could end up with hands or forelimbs. If they'd also started spending more time outside the water, their limbs could have become more dexterous over time. They might have developed to handle life on land, becoming creatures with this blend of aquatic and terrestrial traits, maybe even evolving into something with a mix of human-like and aquatic characteristics. The Pachycetus. This was a prehistoric creature that eventually evolved into a much more intelligent, advanced animal. It could have evolved into a creature almost like us, potentially, but it ended up going in a different direction. Whales. These are obviously a highly intelligent animal. They're excellent communicators with high levels of emotional and social intelligence. They obviously live underwater, but their origins can actually be traced to an amphibious creature called the Pachycetus. These things lived around 50 million years ago, and they're one of the earliest known ancestors of modern whales. But my god, you'd never know it looking at one, or a depiction of one. Obviously, they're long gone now, but we do have bones. Pachycetus looked almost like large rats and probably spent a good chunk of their time on land. But they also had features that eventually evolved into a life completely underwater. For starters, their ear structure was similar to modern whales. Over millions of years, Pachycetus descendants gradually adapted to a more fully aquatic lifestyle. Their bodies became more streamlined. Their limbs evolved into flippers. They transitioned from walking on land to swimming efficiently in the ocean, which eventually led to the beautiful, majestic whales that we have today. Teenage Mutant Ninja Sea Turtles. Sea turtles have been around for over 1 million years, and their long evolutionary history shows just how adaptable and resilient these guys are. They have a unique body with that protective shell. They're capable of long migrations across the ocean, long limbs adapted for swimming, and a highly developed sense of direction for their migrations. Their ability to navigate long distances shows a very high level of environmental awareness. If sea turtles were to evolve further, their flippers might gradually adapt into more functional limbs capable of holding objects, like katanas or nunchucks. Over time, this could result in a semi-aquatic species with a combination of turtle and human traits. They could even learn martial arts, fight crime, eat pizza instead of algae and seaweed. I should turn this into a cartoon. Dolphins are already some of the most intelligent marine animals. They have complex social behaviors, communication skills, problem-solving abilities. Their high intelligence makes it pretty easy to imagine them evolving into a more human-like form. I mean, dolphins even use tools like marine sponges to protect their snouts while they forage on the seafloor. If dolphins continued to evolve, their intelligence could possibly lead to more advanced cognitive functions. Over millions of years, their flippers might evolve to become more versatile. Their social behaviors could get even more complex, maybe even leading to sophisticated forms of communication and perhaps even a culture. Alright, mermaids. The idea of mermaids has been around for centuries, with sightings reported by sailors and explorers from different cultures all over the world. These stories often describe mermaids as having a human upper body and a fish-like lower half. Now, some accounts are pretty detailed, claiming that mermaids live in these elaborate underwater cities or have their own unique cultures. From a cryptozoology viewpoint, one theory is that mermaids could actually be a type of undiscovered primate or marine mammal, and not just something in lore and myth. Reports of mermaid sightings are a lot less frequent than they were back in the day, but there are those rare cases where people claim to have spotted some sort of mermaid-like creature, only they're not usually described looking like Ariel. They're said to be much freakier looking than the Disney depiction. Sure, it's most likely that these early sailors mistook a creature like a manatee or a dugong, both of which have kind of like almost human-like features when you see them from a distance and you're just this desperate sailor who hasn't seen a woman in God knows how long. But who knows? I mean, another possibility is that mermaids could be a form of undiscovered species. If creatures like that existed, they'd be living in remote or deep sea environments where it's hard for scientists to fully explore thoroughly.
Number 5. Hydromedusae. Sounds like a spell. Sounds like a Harry Potter spell. Another crazy deep sea alien fish. Here we go. Let's do it. Never swimming again after this list. During a robotic exploration of the Marianas Trench in 2016, which is a pretty good place to get some deep sea fishies, researchers found a new unidentified species of jellyfish. How fun is that? We mentioned the immortal jellyfish on here before. That's always a good time. The jellyfish that Benjamin Buttons it. He ages backwards. That's cool. This is another crazy one, just a lot deeper. At first, it had its tentacles spread out as if it was ready to, catch some prey or some human or some ship. I don't know, it's ready for something. The tentacles act as a net, catch prey, which is interesting. A fish that fishes with a net. How lovely is that? Also super alien. He was found near the Enigma seamount at a depth of 3,700 meters. Hydromedusae jellyfish has a translucent bell, which is the most intriguing part when you look at it. Oh, also its insides are glowing red and yellow. So yeah, did I mention alien possibly? Because maybe. Number 4, deep sea hermit crab. The deep sea hermit crab, do I have to talk about it? I guess I have to talk about it. Instead of carrying around empty gastropod shells like a hermit crab normally does, the hermit crab we imagine when hearing their name, these deep sea hermit crabs carry around sea anemones with them. Yeah, they just walk on stilts. Look at these dudes. I'm sorry, deep sea crabs on stilts. I'm all set. This almost was number 1. This is almost worse than a spider. Let's pray he stays at the deepest depths of the Atlantic. Number 3, deep sea pigs. It's not what you think, don't worry, it's not horrible. These guys are a genus of sea cucumber, but they have these little tube-like legs and they look really cute, which is why I have to include them. Cute, also a little bit weird. These ones look weirder than normal sea cucumbers, which is an odd statement to make, but I'll stand by it. They like to live on the seafloor where they move through the sediment searching for their next meal, and they eat by extracting tiny little particles of organic matter that have fallen from the surface of the ocean. So they're just there, just waiting for scraps, just looking around. How sad is that? So hungry. Sea pigs measure around 4 to 6 inches long, so yeah, they're pretty cute. They're tiny guys. I'll admit it, they're cute. And they live at a depth of somewhere between 1,200 to 5,000 meters deep, so don't worry about any of these little piggies touching any of your little piggies when next time you take a dip, because they're quite deep. Small but mighty, their skin carries a natural poison, which would make them a horrible midnight snack, as squishy as they look. When brought up closer to the surface, they literally disintegrate, so don't try it if you see one. It's like the video of the raccoon where he tries to wash cotton candy. He puts it in and disappears. He's like... Number 2, the deepest plastic. We're almost done here, so we'll do a sad one for our second last spot here. Why not? Back in 2019, Victor Vescovo took a dive into the Challenger Deep, which is the deepest part of the Marianas Trench, and he found absolutely the scariest thing to ever see in the ocean. A plastic bag. Yeah, you don't want any of this in the ocean, for sure. Some guy brought some spaghetti home for the family, tossed the bag out, now it's all the way down here, and he has no idea. Awesome. I will say Victor broke the record for deepest dive, which of course is amazing for, science, research, and advancements and all that jazz, of course. But I feel like the more we discover and the deeper we go, the more we realize that we're inevitably doomed. And finally, number 1, the deep sea anglerfish. So scary. Here we go. Let's end off on a scary note. Even scarier than pollution. It's not. Close. The deep sea anglerfish is just a sample of how terrifying the ocean can really be. We have no idea. It's also the most fascinating fish I've ever seen in my life. Living at depths of over 6,000 feet, the anglerfish lives in complete darkness. It was first discovered back in 1833 when it washed ashore somehow in Greenland, and then it was studied in Denmark. It was first referred to as the football fish or the mangobbler. Mangobbler is honestly more of a, I could definitely see that. The sea devils have quite the smile, but they don't often get a chance to show it, being that deep and all and in the darkness. Finding prey that deep below the surface is quite the task. The ocean life is also quite sparse when it comes to meals of your choosing. Like I said, some of these guys have to just rely on just particles falling into their mouths. This is why it's often referred to as the fish that fishes. And it's all thanks to that little disco ball of death right here on the forehead. Female anglerfish have a glowing lure on the top of their head, and it's awesome, it's beautiful. This light is created due to bioluminescent bacteria. Thousands of fish have it, and the deep sea anglerfish uses it to hunt. It draws fish in right in front of its massive mouth, and then they see the light, and then moments later, bam, they see another light, the light of the fish gods. R.I.P. Rest in Pacific. Not bad. Those are the top 10 bizarre underwater photos captured by submarines. If you want a part 2, which I feel like you do, comment down below. I've been your host, Taylor McWaters, and I'll see you next time on Most Amazing Top 10. Bye.
Now, who doesn't love the Bahamas? Clear skies, beautiful beaches, and the largest underwater sculpture known to man. The Ocean Atlas, a spectacular sculpture by British artist Jason de Carys Taylor, is located off the coastline of New Providence. Standing a whopping 18 feet tall and weighing nearly 60 tons, you couldn't miss it if you tried. The figure depicts that of a young girl who appears to be holding the ocean above her, a nod to the Greek myth of Atlas, who held up the heavens. A mere 16 feet below the water's surface, that means visitors of all kinds can pay tribute, visiting her by either snorkel or scuba diving. And on top of that, its record-breaking size, the Ocean Atlas is also made of pH-neutral materials, which allows it to double as an artificial reef. It's sure to be the next hot spot on your trip to the Bahamas. Next up is the one and only Great Blue Hole. Located off the coast of Belize, this sinkhole measures a major 300 meters across and 125 meters deep. Many snorkelers have explored the surface, but how many have dared to see what lies deep? Well, back in 2018, a crew from Aquatic Submarines decided it was time to see what was down in the depths of the sinkhole. Setting out to create a 3D map of the Great Blue Hole's interior, they did not expect what they would find next. As it began, the usual suspects came around, like sharks, turtles, and giant corals. But as they went deeper, life altogether came to a screeching halt. It was discovered there was a quote, thick layer of hydrogen sulfide spanning the entire width of the sinkhole, essentially suffocating any life form that dare crawled a little deeper into the cave. It's predicted that it won't be around forever, as surrounding sand and waterfalls are slowly filling up the sinkhole, but for the time being, if you do get to visit, probably best to stick to the surface. While the city of Atlantis is tragically a myth, the city of Halik is as real as it gets. Halik was an ancient Greek city that in fact is suggested to be what inspired Plato to write his story of the lost city of Atlantis all those years ago. The city was submerged underwater by a terrifying earthquake followed by a tsunami dating back to 373 BC. At the time, the local ancient Greeks believed the flood to have been the wrath of God, specifically Poseidon. For the Romans, it became quite the tourist attraction, but sadly, while the city may have been underwater in the time of the Greeks and Romans, that lagoon has since completely covered under riverborne sediments. Over time, the city has become gradually more and more silted and has been added to the list of 100 most endangered sites. Next on our list is for all our pirate lovers out there. Once described as, quote, the most wicked and sinful city in the world, Port Royal in Jamaica was once famous for its pirates, rum drinking, and ladies of the night, but was nearly destroyed by a huge earthquake which hit the island in 1692. Edmund Heath, a witness and survivor of the earthquake and tsunami, wrote in letters, quote, the earth opened and swallowed many people before my face, and the sea I saw coming mounting in over the wall, upon which I concluded it impossible to escape. The city, buried and lost, was celebrated by many as a solution to the problem of the sinful lifestyle it attracted. Today you can still strap on that snorkel and dive down to the ruins and imagine what a pirate's life might have been like. Just maybe keep the rum on the shore. And in our last spot is the best one yet. Found in Grenada's Molinare Bay, this incredible underwater park is one sight for sore eyes. Designed in 2007 by Jason DeCaires Taylor, this sculpture park is now listed as one of the top 25 wonders of the world by National Geographic. Accessible by snorkeling or scuba diving, visitors can swim through an array of whimsical life-size sculptures like a man sitting at a typewriter or a bicycle rider. But it's not all just for show. Similar to his other installations, Taylor created this park to improve marine life and create habitats for corals, algae, and sponges. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to click the subscribe button so you can tune in for all the cool mysteries we'll unfold next.
In our number 5 spot today, we have the peacock mantis shrimp. I mean, need I say more? These guys can be found in the Indian and tropical western Pacific Oceans, and man are they a wondrous sight. They get their peacock name from their fantastic colors, but despite how awesome these candy-colored shrimp are to look at, this actually isn't what they are known best for. These guys are actually best known for their ability to quickly punch with their front 2 appendages, and despite their tiny size, don't underestimate their power. Apparently, this punch is one of the fastest movements in the entire animal kingdom. In fact, it's so fast that it causes enough power to be able to break the glass wall of an aquarium. I mean, they definitely know how to pack a punch. Luckily, they usually save this sort of thing to break open mollusks and help them get through a crab's armor. In our number 4 spot today, we have the colossal squid. The colossal squid is a creature that is not to be confused with the giant squid, which is similar but slightly smaller. These guys live in the darkest, coldest depths surrounding the waters of Antarctica. This creature lives up to its name as it reaches an average of 46 feet in size, and it weighs around 500 kilograms, with the females being the largest of the species. They also have large tentacles equipped with suckers that have little razor hooks on them to better latch onto its prey, so let's hope it's not you. Its diet mainly consists of large fish, such as the 7-foot Patagonian toothfish. It also includes small ones, and sometimes they even consume their own kind. But They've also been known to try and consume larger prey, like sperm whales, who often have been seen with scars attributing to the battles they must have faced. They're colossal, they're scary, and they're ambitious. What more could you want from a sea monster? Only 2 specimens have ever been collected, with the second being found recently in 2014. If you ever wondered where the tales of the Kraken came from, you now know. In our number 3 spot today, we have the predatory tunicate. Okay, say what you want about any other fish on this list today, but these guys definitely look the most like aliens, and honestly, they are the epitome of deep sea weirdness. The predatory tunicate is like the Venus flytrap of the deep sea. They start out life kind of like tadpoles, and then they swim until they find their perfect spot, either along a canyon wall or right on the sea floor. Once they found their spot, they plant themselves in place using a natural adhesive that they produce. Once planted, they will undergo a huge change, and this is where they will stay for the rest of their lives. They are super picky about where exactly they make their homes because it will be where they stay, and because they need to make sure that both the chemicals in the water in that area as well as the temperature of the water is just right. Unfortunately, if these guys get moved from the location they choose to make their home, they will die, so it's imperative that they're just left alone. They basically wait for food to drift on by, and like a Venus flytrap, when they get their meal, their mouths will snap shut until they're done digesting. The predatory tunicate is a point of study in the medical world because they actually have been known to help with some more serious medical conditions, which is always an incredible thing. In our number 2 spot today, we have the sea pen. Okay, this thing under the sea looks a lot like a pen, right? Well, the orange sea pen is not a pen, and it's not even a sort of plant. It's actually a colony of animals that can withdraw into the soft sediment wherever it is found. So I just heard of these guys today, but it turns out they are a lot more common, and there are actually about 300 species of sea pens. To make them even more out of this world, it is said that with a little stimulation, they glow with a green sort of light. So I don't know about you, but that's the most alien thing I've ever heard. In our number 1 spot today, we have the Yeti crab. Okay, I'll be honest, these guys are on this list today because they look so incredibly strange, but they are also remarkably unique. These furry clawed crabs, yes, you heard me, they were first discovered 5,000 feet deep in the ocean near a hydrothermal vent. They were found just south of Easter Island, and when found, it was realized that they were not only in a new genus of their own, but a new family as well. Because of the deep, dark, and extreme environment that these guys live in, not much about them is known at this point in time. It is believed that they likely don't have sight, and it's also thought that they might have a sort of bacteria that resides in its furry claws, which allows it to detoxify the food that is coming from the vent. Listen, the ocean is scary, but it's also unbelievable and truly incredible.
Next up is the Atlantic wolffish. Just look at this thing. A lot of fish can be pretty ugly, but this thing looks downright mean. It doesn't help that they can reach up to 5 feet in length and have canine-like fangs sticking out of their mouths. Really adds to their overall grumpy looking expression permanently plastered on their faces. Their teeth are made for crushing the shells of crustaceans, mollusks, and other hard-shelled prey. And their bodies are usually brown or grayish blue, helping them blend in with the rocky seafloor where they often reside. One interesting thing about these fish is how they reproduce. Instead of laying eggs like most fish do, the females actually retain their eggs and the young develop inside them until they're ready to hatch. Once the eggs do hatch, the female gives birth to live, fully formed, horrific looking fish. Finally though, we have the North Sea anomaly. The Baltic Sea anomaly is a very mysterious object located at the bottom of the Baltic Sea, discovered in 2011 by a Swedish treasure hunting team known as Ocean X. But what exactly is this thing? A lot of the scientific community has chalked it up to being naturally formed, but there are plenty of conspiracy theories surrounding it. It kind of resembles a disc or a circular object with an unusual kind of structure. It looks like it could have been constructed artificially, either by humans as part of some military project or unknown ancient civilization, or of course some say extraterrestrials. The Ocean X team initially described the Baltic Sea anomaly as a round object with strange features. There are also rumors that they claimed to experience electrical interference when their equipment approached it. But again, those are only rumors. A lot of scientists and researchers say this could be just a glacial or geological formation. So yeah, I guess not quite in the North Sea, Baltic Sea, but close enough. And it's an interesting find. Alright, we're gonna do a comment shout out time though. Saw this on my top 10 dark things scientists found in abandoned places. I talked about bog bodies in that video, which are these eerily well-preserved, almost mummified bodies found in bogs. Michael Sternberg, 1597, commented, "One of the earliest bog bodies discovered looks so well preserved, initially the police responded to it as a homicide, only to discover that the body was over 1,000 years old." That is really cool, Michael. If I'd known that, I'd have definitely included that in the video. I love when comments teach me something new.
Number 5. The Yonaguni Monument. Are they man-made steps and ancient pyramids that sank in an earthquake, or natural rock formations? These strange structures in the water off the coast of Japan, nicknamed Japan's Atlantis, have baffled scientists since they were found. The sea off Yonaguni is a popular diving location during the winter months because of its large population of hammerhead sharks. In 1986, while looking for a good place to observe the sharks, the director of Yonggi-Chao Tourism Association noticed some singular seabed formations resembling architectural structures. Amazingly, scientists are still arguing if people, or Mother Nature, created the Yonaguni Monument, as well as whether markings in the stone are carvings of faces and animals, or simply naturally made scratches. Today, it's a popular dive spot with tourists today, and continues to puzzle people as one of the ancient mysteries researchers still can't explain. Number 4. Giant underwater pyramids. Is an anomaly that experts have been unable to fully understand or explain. Picked up by oceanic GPS technology, measurements of a structure were found, leading researchers to believe that 2 giant pyramids of ancient times sit underwater thousands of feet below the surface. The GPS data received back that the structures had a base of 8,000 square feet and were about 150 feet tall, making these pyramids pretty giant in size. But there's very little explanation into their existence, leaving it all entirely up to speculation. Why would they be there? Is it another hidden city? Who knows? The pyramid has been underwater for about 20,000 years. Considering this is around the time of the last ice age, where glaciation was melting from its peak 2,000 years prior, whatever civilization, human or not, that was around before the ice age could be responsible for building the pyramid. While the Portuguese Navy still hasn't determined the origins, many question why it hadn't been first reported sooner than late 2012. Now, to further support the idea the pyramid could have been built by different civilizations, archaeologists from the Portuguese Association of Archaeological Research have recently discovered evidence on Pico Island that suggests their belief that humans existed in the Azores region before the arrival of the Portuguese thousands of years ago. Number 3. The Mariana Trench. In the western Pacific Ocean, you will find the deepest part of the sea. The Mariana Trench is deeper than the height of Mount Everest, 43 miles wide, and a massive 1,580 miles long, which is 5 times larger than the Grand Canyon. Certified US National Monument, only small areas of the Mariana Trench have been explored. James Cameron reached the bottom in the submersible vessel Deep Sea Challenger in 2012, with the last successful attempt to search the ocean floor coming in 2020, when Chinese submersible Fantasia made it all the way down. Several new species of underwater creatures have been discovered in the Mariana Trench, with most living on the surface of the ocean floor, including a type of sea cucumber. Explorers will find themselves in total darkness as they continue to understand what else lies in the deepest parts of the ocean and how the marine life manages to survive. Now, because of its sheer size and pressure, only 4 expeditions in total have successfully descended, so will we ever know what's really down there? I don't think so. Number 2. Orca attacks. For weeks, the world has been watching with interest as a group of orcas appear to be ambushing boats off the coasts of Spain and Portugal. Now, a boat captain is speaking out, saying that after his boat was attacked for a second time, he now thinks these groups of orcas know exactly what they're doing. Captain Dan Kritz, a sailor with Reliance Yacht Management, had his first orca encounter in 2020. "I was sailing with my delivery crew delivering a yacht when I was surrounded with a pack of 8 orcas, pushing the boat around for about an hour. We were one of the first boats experiencing this very unusual orca behavior." He added, "First time in 2020 we could hear them communicating under the boat. This time they were quiet, it didn't take them that long to destroy both rudders. Looks like they knew exactly what they were doing, they didn't touch anything else," he added, saying it only took them about 15 minutes to dismantle parts of the boat. Now, marine scientists are still trying to determine what is causing the uptick in orca attacks on boats off the coasts of Portugal and Spain, but there's no question there's been a sizable increase in incidents over the past 2 years. Killer whale research group Atlantic Orca Working Group has found that these events have tripled, with 52 incidents in 2020 compared to more than 200 in 2022. Earlier this month, biologist and wildlife conservationist Jeff Coren told CBS that the behavior boils down to the incredible intelligence of orcas, and he believes older whales are teaching their young pod members these destructive tendencies. And honestly, good for them. We are practically barging into their house, and I think that they should keep it up. And coming in at number 1 is the Bermuda Triangle. The Bermuda Triangle is an urban legend focused on loosely defined regions of the western part of the North Atlantic Ocean, where a number of aircrafts and ships are said to disappear under mysterious circumstances. Some speculate that unknown and mysterious forces account for the unexplained disappearances, such as extraterrestrials capturing humans for study, the influence of lost continent of the Atlantis, and vortexes that suck objects into other dimensions. For example, on December 5th, 1945, Flight 19 was lost with 14 airmen, and later that same day, PBM Mariner U number 59225 was lost with 13 airmen while searching for Flight 19. Or when in 1918 the USS Cyclops and the 309 people on it disappeared without a trace sometime after leaving Barbados. So far, this is the biggest loss of Navy personnel not related to combat. Things just seem to disappear with no explanation there, so will we ever know what goes on there? I don't think so, and I think we should just stay away.
At number 5, the Moray Dragon. Oh god. An old WW2 ammunition ship off the south coast, England, was full of brass topped with shells. This pile of shiny brass metals was miraculously untouched and remarkably clean after spending years underwater. Out of the murky darkness, the largest moray I have ever seen snakes forward without exaggeration. This thing had a head the same size as a horse's head full of jagged teeth. I couldn't see the body as it was looped into the dark and deeper into the ship. No one got near those shells. As it turns out, for years this thing's been guarding these shiny brass shells, slithering over them, making them shine. We found out at the bar later that he was famous in the area, and many people went to the wreck just to see him. No idea why this giant creature was guarding them like a dragon and its horde, but some said that morays are like magpies and like shiny things. At number 4, Don't Free Dive Alone by u/Bantam. When you're freediving, you come up slowly more to conserve energy and air. You haven't breathed compressed air, so you haven't taken on much nitrogen. Repetitive deep freedivers can get bent, but it's pretty rare. You can come up as fast as you like, but the 10 meter to the surface pressure gradient is high, so you have to be super careful. And if you don't have enough O2 in your bloodstream, when you come up, sometimes your alveoli can rob O2 out of your bloodstream to keep the right lung balance and make you pass out. I did have one scary incident where I should have probably perished, and this is the Don't Free Dive Alone, folks. Warning. I was down at 20 meters taking photos of an octopus alone. I was probably down there for 2 minutes or so and maybe overstayed my welcome. I started to ascend, but the panic really hit, and stupidly, rather than letting the buoyancy take me home, I gave in and started finning hard. Fatal mistake. This starts to use up large quantities of stored oxygen in your blood, and thus you become depleted. When I got to about 6 meters, I remember feeling lovely and warm, like the sea was giving me a warm blanket hug. My wetsuit felt lovely and I felt frizzy, and the next thing I remember is finning out at the surface and shaking. I was finning, trying to keep my head above water, and eventually laid on my back and floated. I had passed out at 6 meters, and the wind had resuscitated me when I got to the surface. If it hadn't been windy, I most likely would have been dead, as the wind told my lips and the receptors that I was above the surface, which is why you're taught to blow on people's lips and faces to bring them back around as freedivers. At number 3 is Bad Air. I was 18 meters down when my air went bad. It had a weird metallic surgery taste to it, and I started losing consciousness. I pointed myself up and pulled on my BCD, which is buoyancy compressor, and about 6 meters from the surface, I blacked out. When I woke up, I was being hauled into the dive boat. I blew both my eardrums, and I haven't been able to dive since. I got very freaking lucky. I could have drowned. At number 2, picked up a venomous hitchhiker. Diving the day before a hurricane on the small South Pacific island, when out of nowhere, a black and white sea snake, which was venomous, wrapped itself around my arm. Apparently this happens from time to time and before major storms. They can sense it and look for things that are heading towards the shore so that they don't have to put in so much effort to get out of the sea. As soon as I was in the shallows, it uncurled and headed up the beach where it hid under a breadfruit tree. At number 1, the undeniable feeling of absolute dread. I'm in the Atlantic. Depth is about 30 to 50 feet with a lot of pocket reefs around. I swim away from a reef to see what's in that direction. Visibility about 40 feet. In front of me, at the surface, Right at the edge of visibility, I see a massive body. What I can see is around 2 to 3 feet thick, about 6 to 10 feet long. I can only see a body, and I can't see a tail or a head. It's a light silver with something darker or golden brown stripes. It was only there for a second, and it must have been turning to go the other direction, and I only saw part of its body. And I had never seen anything like that. I was curious and intrigued. I started to swim towards it to see what it was. I got right about 12 feet in that direction when a fright came through my entire body. It was a primal, undeniable feeling of absolute dread and horror. My body was telling me that whatever that thing was, I needed to get the hell out of the water as fast as I could. I stopped swimming towards it and immediately pivoted back towards the boat. I swam on my back so I could keep looking behind me in the direction that thing had been. I don't know what that thing was, but it was massive. It was a giant and I was a fly. Some part of my animal brain knew what it was and knew that it was a danger.
Next up, we have the submarine disappearances of 1968. Between the months of January and May, 4 submarines from different countries went missing, lost to the deep sea. The first to go down was the Israeli INS Dakar, which disappeared in January in the Mediterranean Sea along with its crew of 69 men. 2 days later, a French submarine, the Minerva, and its crew of 52 men disappeared in the same region. Later, a Soviet nuclear sub with a crew of 98 disappeared in the South Pacific, and after that, another Soviet nuclear sub sank down to the bottom of the North Atlantic Sea. In 1999, the first wreck, the INS Dakar, was found, but it is debated whether or not the sub sank after descending past its abilities or being taken out by opposing forces. The rest of the wrecks remain a complete mystery, but in 1974, the CIA did recover pieces of one of the Soviet nuclear subs, but when asked about their findings, their answers consisted solely of, "We can neither confirm nor deny." So, cover up, I guarantee it. Speaking of mysterious disappearances, we've covered subs, ships, planes, but how about the disappearance of an entire island? Prior to the 18th century, the small island of Bermuda, I'm sorry guys who don't know how to pronounce that. Anyways, it was widely featured on maps of the Yucatan Peninsula, which separates the Gulf of Mexico from the Caribbean Sea. However, the depiction of the island slowly started disappearing in the 1700s, with the last confirmed appearance of the island being depicted on a map created in 1921. While you might believe the existence of the island to have been a myth created by ancient cartographers, Mexico actually confirmed the existence of the island and even made 3 attempts to locate its remains in 2009. The missions were unsuccessful, but hope is still out there that one day it will be found. There are 2 main theories surrounding why the island might have disappeared in the first place. 1, rising sea levels caused the low-lying island to sink, and 2, the CIA blew it up because the areas surrounding it were rich in oil and Americans wanted to improve their claim over the area. 2 very different theories, but I want to know which one sounds the most likely to you. We know which one sounds the most likely to me, but let me know your thoughts down below. Next up, we've got aquatic megafauna, gigantic animals that exist within the unexplored depths of the ocean. Although many marine species remain undiscovered, there are a few species of massive aquatic life that we do know of, other than whales and sharks, of course. Both the giant squid and the colossal squid come to mind. The largest giant squid ever recorded measured in to be 43 feet long and weighed in to be almost 1,000 pounds, but it's said that they can measure up to 66 feet and weigh well over 1,000 pounds. The largest recorded colossal squid ever found measured in at just under 43 feet, but weighed over 1,000 pounds at 1,091. But like the giant squid, it is believed that they can grow to be much larger. Both animals have 3 hearts, 8 arms, and 2 tentacles. The giant squid's 8 arms are covered in sharp, serrated suction cups, and the colossal squid suckers are equipped with strong, sharp hooks. Needless to say, you wouldn't want to run into either one. Considering these guys were found with only 5% of the ocean having been explored, I can only imagine what other kinds of gigantic, mysterious creatures we'll find if we keep looking. And I suggest we keep looking. Speaking of giant things in the ocean, let's talk about the Stronsay beast. In 1808, a massive aquatic animal carcass washed up on the shores of Stronsay Swansea in Scotland, measuring up to 55 feet in length, even with part of its tail missing. Originally, scientists assumed that the carcass had been that of a large shark, but upon closer inspection it became clear that whatever creature they were looking at had paw-like appendages instead of fins, and so it was decided that the animal was a new species. Since its original discovery back in the 1800s, the animal has not been seen, but maybe one day, if we look hard enough, we'll once again find the creature that likely gave way to tales of Loch Ness monsters. From monsters to aliens. It's a NASA video. We had to include at least one point paying homage to our friends from afar. I mean, I hope they're friendly. There is one distinct structure that comes to mind when you combine the topics of aliens and the deep sea, two of my favorite, and that is the Baltic Sea anomaly. The anomaly was originally discovered in 2011 by sonar imaging by the Sweden Ocean X diving team while they were hunting for treasure on the floor of the northern Baltic Sea. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to tell you that the thing looks like a UFO. The formation seen on the bottom of the seafloor is structured and purposeful, with patterns along the stair-like structures along the sides and top of the, what I'm assuming to be a spacecraft. As far as the public knows, it has only ever been explored using radar, but I have a feeling at least a few people have been down there and are either holding the truth about what they found incredibly close to their chest, or they were killed as soon as they made it back up to the surface. Either one, it's possible. Next up, we have the Jacuzzi of Despair, a deadly lake located at the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico. The Jacuzzi has a circumference of about 100 feet and it reaches a depth of about 12. So, how is it that there is a small body of water separated from the ocean located over 3,000 feet below the surface? Well, I'll tell you. The Jacuzzi is actually something called a brine pool, a pocket of water 5 times saltier than the surrounding seawater, so dense that it refuses to mix with its surroundings. Not only that, but brine pools also create the perfect condition for methane gas and hydrogen sulfide to thrive. So although this underwater pool might look cool, anything that is unfortunate enough to enter into its divided waters will most certainly die, and that includes you and me, so let's avoid it. And finally, to finish off our list today, we have Leptocephalus giganticus, but we're just gonna call it Lep because whoever named that thing kinda sucks. I'm looking at you, Peter Henry John Castle. The Lep is an extremely rare species of eel that was discovered in 1959, which was super lucky because the species is known to regularly inhabit the deep depths and it's rarely ever seen. 2 specimens of the species have been studied, but only in their larva baby phase. And given that eel larvae are generally only 1/32nd of their adult life, the fact that one of these specimens measured in at 6 feet long is crazy. And it means it's possible that adults of the species inhabiting the deep can grow to be up to 192 feet long, which would make it the longest aquatic animal, or longest animal altogether for that matter, known to man, far surpassing the lion's mane jellyfish, which is the previous record holder should this turn out to be true. It measures in at 120 feet in length. Blue whale, just for reference, measures in at only 98 feet. Pretty wild stuff.
1968 was not a good year to be in a submarine. That year, 4 subs vanished, all within a relatively short time frame. The subs were the Israeli INS Dakar, the French Minerva, the Soviets K-129, and finally, America's USS Scorpion. Now, we don't know exactly what happened to these submarines, but this was the Cold War, so there's a good chance the fate of the US and Soviet subs had something to do with that. The Israeli subs ceased communication on January 25th of that year though, and the wreckage wasn't found until 1999. And just 2 days after the Israeli sub had originally gone missing, the Minerva vanished in the waters off Toulon in southern France. It was just an hour away from port, and this one wasn't found until 2019.
Next up, we've got the mysterious methane leak of the deep blue sea. doesn't sound ominous or damning at all. Not. In August of 2022, researchers discovered that a massive amount of methane was bubbling up from the bottom of the deepest point in the Baltic Sea. You know, where the Baltic Sea anomaly that may or may not be an alien spaceship lies. But I digress. The team in charge of monitoring the methane reported that it was, and I quote, basically bubbling everywhere, covering an area of roughly 7.7 square miles or 20 square kilometers, which is around 4,000 soccer fields. And it's all happening at a depth of about 1,300 feet or 400 meters. Whole lot of numbers going on here. Anyways, researchers believe that the methane is coming from a large amount of decaying organic matter lying on the sea floor. But like, there's a lot of methane, so at this point in time, they aren't 100% sure. And they also have absolutely no clue as to why it is rising so high up. So it looks like we've got a mystery on our hands.
Back in 2015, the EV Nautilus, a San Pedro-based research vessel, discovered something pretty insane in the Gulf of Mexico, an incredibly deadly underwater lake 3,300 feet below the surface. It's this pit of high salinity water and dissolved methane, and anything that goes too close doesn't make it out alive. They just get pickled. The underwater lake formed millions of years ago when the area was much shallower and covered in salt beds left behind by evaporating water. Over time, these salt layers got buried under sediments, and the pressure caused cracks, allowing oil, gas, and super salty brine to seep out. This brine is so salty and dense that it doesn't mix well with the surrounding seawater. Instead, it forms its own underwater lakes, rivers, and even waterfalls. And around the edges of this brine pool, mussels really thrive actually. They cling to the mineral deposits, and these mussels have a special relationship with bacteria that live on their gills. The bacteria use gases like methane and hydrogen sulfide, which seep from the ocean floor to produce energy for the mussels. Now, while the mussels can live near the brine pool, the brine itself is extremely toxic to most sea life. It contains very little oxygen and high levels of harmful chemicals like hydrogen sulfide and methane. Any fish or sea creature that ventures into the brine is quickly killed and preserved by the super salty water, which is 4 times saltier than the surrounding ocean. It's really cool. You look at images of this place and there's all these like crabs that have been sitting there for like who knows how long. It's like a graveyard.
Next up, we've got the world's loneliest fish, aka the deepest dwelling fish, which just so happens to look incredibly cool. The species, believed to be an unknown species of snailfish, was discovered in April of last year, 2023. Scientists were able to capture video of the fish feeding in the Izu Ugasawara Trench near Japan at a depth of 27,349 feet. It was a groundbreaking discovery for marine researchers who up until then had only ever seen fish at a depth of about 500 feet above where this species was found. So how the heck do these fish survive at a depth packing such immense pressure that it would cause you and I to crumple up like a shiny ball of tinfoil? Well, I'll tell you. Snailfish are incredibly adaptive, so adaptive in fact that they have replaced their scales with a gelatinous layer that helps to absorb the pressure. And their chemical makeup has adapted to protect their cells from the pressure as well, so they're pretty much set. But it begs the question of whether or not we find an even deeper fish with even more gelatinous bits next year. Here's hoping.
Can't do a deep sea mystery video without mentioning at least one shipwreck, and this one is very intriguing because it seemed like there was some sort of bad energy attached to it. In the Gulf of Mexico, once again, there's a shipwreck that seems to bring nothing but bad luck to anyone who tries to explore it. ExxonMobil discovered this wreck while laying down a pipeline, and that was the last bit of good fortune they had near the site. When a team was put together to check out the wreck, everything started going wrong. Their exploration submarine malfunctioned just as it was about to dive. Problems ranged from video monitors failing every time they turned on the thrusters to the sonar breaking down and the hydraulics going crazy, one after another. Then the Navy got involved and sent their own research submarine. This sub had its own set of issues as well. It pretty much destroyed its own rover as soon as it hit the water, and when it finally reached the wreck, its robotic arms were too short to grab anything of use, and these are just a few examples of the long list of failed attempts to explore the wreck. It seems like anyone who tries to get close to it is doomed to fail in some bizarre or frustrating way.
Next up, we have some unusual behaviors being displayed by a new mother. In June of 2022, marine researchers witnessed something they had never seen before while tracking a female squid who had just given birth in the waters of Monterey Bay, California. The mama squid was observed carrying her babies. Why is this strange? Well, because up until now, squids have only ever been observed abandoning their babies. Not in a CPS way though, it's just not in their nature to care for their young. And it has always been believed that once a squid lays its eggs, it leaves them to develop on their own. But of course, now there is video evidence proving that that is not always the case. Scientists observing the behavior speculated that maybe the mother was spooked, perhaps by the remotely controlled rover used to observe her, and she felt as though she needed to take extra precaution to ensure the safety of her offspring. But at the end of the day, they didn't ask her, so we really don't know the answer.
We've all heard about the legend of Atlantis. Well, Japan may have an Atlantis of its very own, Yonaguni Monument. This mysterious structure was discovered in 1986 by diver Kihachiro Aretake off the coast of Yonaguni Island in Japan. It's been heavily debated as to whether this place was naturally forming or not ever since. It's located about 60 feet beneath the ocean's surface. The monument consists of these massive stone blocks arranged in a way that really does look like it was done deliberately. You see what look like terraces and steps, all these columns and walls. The main structure is something that almost looks like a pyramid. This was why it's known as the Yonaguni Monument. And ever since these formations were first discovered, there's been this idea floating around, no pun intended, that the Yonaguni Monument is part of the remnants of a sunken city belonging to some prehistoric advanced civilization, like the lost continent of Mu, for example, dating back around 10,000 years. Mu's existence has never been 100% verified, and it's kind of in the same vein as Atlantis or Lemuria, but folks like university professor and researcher Masaki Kimura believe that the precision and arrangement of the stone blocks go far beyond what could occur naturally, and that these formations are likely from an ancient human settlement now submerged beneath the waves. But there are plenty of skeptics on the other side who say that it's all just formed naturally. They argue that the formations are more likely a result of some tectonic activity, erosion. People are just looking too deeply into it. Pareidolia, we look at things we don't understand and we go, oh, that looks like a house or a column of some kind, stairs. Well, I don't know. Personally, I look at these photos and I don't know, those look like stairs to me. But what do you guys all think?
And finally, to finish us off today, we have the mystery that is, how the hell are animals able to survive and actually thrive on the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, aka the GPGP? In 2018, while studying debris collected from what is essentially a floating island made of garbage, two scientists noticed something strange. Very tiny marine animals, including crabs and anemones, animals that are normally seen on beaches and along the coast. So how the heck did they end up all the way out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean? No one actually knows. As a general rule of thumb, the open ocean is not at all a suitable environment for small animals such as crabs and anemones because there is not a lot of shelter to help them defend against predators. But now, all of a sudden, it seems as though these small animals have found shelter in our old bottle caps and chip bags. But again, how did they get there? Because surely these animals would not have been able to swim all the way out into the open ocean and then all the way up to the garbage patch. And yet it appears as though a whole new thriving ecosystem does very much exist there. Of course, it's possible that these animals latched onto the plastic when it first entered the ocean and then held on for months as it journeyed out to the GPGP, but again, that doesn't really line up with previously observed behaviors. Really, the whole thing is just one big what's going on to science and scientists.
Well, one day I plan on getting over my, I don't know if I ever want to do scuba diving. Something about not being able to breathe air just doesn't really excite me all that much.
I'm scared of getting the bends. Like if you come up too fast in the pressure and then you're bringing and you have to go in the decompression chamber. Yeah. Sounds not fun. If that's ever happened to you, let us know down below. And if we missed anything, cool ocean facts, let us know there too. I've been your host, Hannah Thompson.
I've been your host, James.
See ya. Sea like the ocean. Haha.
Want to see more videos like this one? Check out this video next. It's about the top 100 objects that are not from this planet. Yep, we ranked all of the objects on the planet that scientists have confirmed are not from this planet. Click the video now to find out more.